Yeah, about me. So I did not think that I was ever going to be a psychic. That was probably the last thing on my mind. And I grew up very rational. And just as context, I was born in the Lower East Side in New York City. My parents are from China. And when we were all living here, we didn't have much money. Like my mom started out as a seamstress for a garment factory, and my dad started out as a cook in a Chinese restaurant, worked his way, sorry, as a dishwasher, and then worked his way up to be a cook in a Chinese restaurant. And so, as many immigrant children will attest to, our focus was entirely on education, just like work hard, you know, go to a good school and then get a job and just make a ton of money, and you're set for life. And everything that our parents had sacrificed was going to some good, because our lives were going to be theoretically quote unquote better. And so that was drilled into me. So that's what I did. I worked really hard. I went to Yale University for undergrad, studied economics and American studies, and went into a career that I actually really, really love. And I still do. I consider myself an urban planner. So I think by virtue of growing up being low income and being in New York City, you're just surrounded by people of um, different races, ethnicities, socioeconomic classes. And so I was just intrigued by how do we improve people's lives. And at that time, it was through cities, through community and economic development. So I did that. I worked in that field for 10 years in the private sector in consulting, then in the nonprofit sector, and then for city government for New York City, working actually on cultivating the tech ecosystem. So it was a lot about very much the rational brain at work. And I had then gone to graduate school. I went to MIT to get a master's in urban planning, thinking this is my career. I love it. I'm good at it. And it was during that point that I had this. I guess it was an emotional breakdown. It was during this huge project. I was working with 8 people across different universities on this affordable housing project. And at the moment the project was due, we had spent months working on it. The moment the project was due, everything went wrong. And one of my team members called me on the phone and said, we were in danger of missing the deadline. And he said, Julie, you are an awful project manager. And for some reason, it just triggered me. And I like politely hung up the phone, said my goodbye, always the diplomat. And then I was just sobbing. I was hyperventilating. I had never experienced something like that before. And I just felt like I had let him down. I had let my entire team down, and that I had let all low income people down. And it was especially hard because I came from that background, and I was thinking, all by virtue of whatever happened, people's lives could be impacted in a negative way, or the opportunity wouldn't exist for them. And I was just gone. I didn't even know what to do at that point. And then the next moment, I noticed a bird had landed on my windowsill. And I lived on the third floor in Cambridge. And I walked over to this window, and I had one of those windows that push out. So it's this, it's like a window pane that pushes out, and the bird would have to fly under and onto the windowsill. And I looked at it, and it was this beautiful robin. So I remember thinking in my mind and looking at the bird and thinking, you are so beautiful. You are so free. I want to be you. And in that moment, I felt this incredible rush of peace just flow through my entire body. It felt so physical, palpable. And then I started hearing things. I saw images in my mind's eye. I heard things in my head. I felt this deep knowing in every single cell of my body that I was okay, that I was at peace. And then in the next moment, the bird flew away. So afterwards, I was like, oh my goodness, I have no idea what happened. I maybe grew up believing in God, but never went to church. My family never had that kind of never occurred to them. And but I never had evidence of something else out there until that moment. And then I actually was kind of upset of thinking, um, how did I go through all those years of education and not know that this existed? Or even more, that people would find it taboo to talk about any of these topics. But what was good was that it gave me the space to make some phone calls, and we submitted the proposal. It was super late. And then a month later, it turned out that we had won the competition. So we were able to fund the nonprofit that we were working with. And that was the first of a series of spiritual experiences that let me see that there is something more to life, that there is a way to connect through other senses to just this greater world, the divine. And so I felt like I wanted to learn everything I could about it. I remember working in tech by day, and then at night it was all about, I really want to cultivate this sense, this psychic sense, which I feel like that experience opened up the possibility for it, and that it let my mind believe that it was possible. It just shifted my perspective so much, and it became kind of up to me to make a choice to learn, to have the discipline actually to learn. And so I did everything pretty much in the closet because none of my circles believe any of this. And I just ordered books off of Amazon and learned. I was actually afraid of going into a bookstore and like plunking down a pile of books about, what are angels and how do you become psychic and all of these things. And that's what I did. I just spent time practicing. And it got to a point where I could channel, and channeling meaning I could ask a question and then receive information, kind of this two-way communication that I didn't know was possible. So fast forward, I ended up feeling like, I love my job, but I felt like something, whatever was next for me related to my purpose, my deeper purpose, and whatever was next was going to really challenge me, was going to pit all my fears into one place, and it did. I knew that whatever this was going to open me up and kind of throw me into the deep end in a way that my ego wasn't ready for. Ego meaning like the part of me that's always ready to protect myself, but my higher self, that part of me that's, and then the part of everyone has a higher self, that part of me that was ready, was just calling for it. And so at that time, I had discovered something called the Akashic Records, through a lot of reading, and I didn't feel called to look into my own Akashic Records until then. And if you can imagine a library of information about every soul, all your dreams, your thoughts, your emotions, your purpose in the world, all of this is out there. Imagine like a TV waves or radio waves are always there. All this information is there. And if we are the right antenna at the right frequency, we can receive this information. So all of you guys can receive this information. And I had gotten to the point where I could channel through the Akashic Records. And so I asked the Akashic Records and the guides, the spirit guides of the Akashic Records, what is my soul's purpose? And what I received was, it is to use my voice, in part to sing, in part to build a family of spiritually empowered people, both my family and also a larger family, a community, and to share my story. And when I heard this information, I felt like, oh my goodness, a huge burden was lifted off my shoulders, that this was who I am, but I had never allowed myself to do that. Or I could look back and see pockets of my life where the moment I did sing, or the moment where I did share my voice, or had the courage to share my voice and speak up, or the moment where I um, maybe wrote a story that impacted people, those were the moments where I felt like I was so aligned. I could feel joy when I was younger, and then now when I'm aligned in that way, I can feel my crown chakra tingling, or like full body tingles or goosebumps. Like when you have that moment and you feel goosebumps, that is a good sign that you're connecting with something greater than yourself. And so what was interesting was that knowing my purpose allowed me to actually step out and leave my job and my career to actually revisit singing again, because it was something that I had done all throughout my life until I started working and then stopped singing because it just wasn't important to me, or rather my job was more important or everything else was more important. And so I got to get back into singing, and I try to incorporate that in what I do now. So you'll be hearing a little singing of mine during the meditation. And to use my voice, I had been an incredibly, such an incredible introvert, like far, far on the spectrum. If you were to take a Myers-Briggs personality test, I was so introverted that for most of my life, I couldn't speak up in class at all. That was a classic comment my teachers always made, that Julie just won't speak. And I maybe couldn't speak out of, more than one person. And it was debilitating, that kind of fear. And I didn't know why. Just um it's almost like I just couldn't do it. Like I would my mentally force myself, Julie, you can raise your hand in class, but I just literally could not do it. And then kind of fast forward to now, knowing that my purpose is to use my voice actually made me realize, like, if you look at the 300,000 foot level, of course that would make sense, because if the hardest thing for me throughout my entire life was to speak and to use my voice, then imagine all the incredible growth that can come out when I'm able to push through that and be on the other side. And I think from my own journey and from helping now people that I work with as clients to do what I call purpose readings for them to discover their purpose and kind of see their life through that perspective, I found that if you have challenges of that nature, usually the other side of it is where there is so much growth, and it's most likely tied to your purpose. And so a lot of my clients now, when they look at, I'll use my example of using my voice as an example. When that information pops up, it's almost like, oh, is that it? It's as simple as using my voice? Okay, like, I felt like I had permission finally to do that, and it actually came naturally. The fact that I'm even talking to all of you guys, I couldn't have imagined that, when I was in high school. So, so that happened, and sharing my story, it helped. Knowing that part helped me to see that one of my next steps in my business, um, of doing readings and creating a company called Being My Purpose, helping people to connect with their purpose in that way. The next step for me was to create a podcast, which I didn't expect either until my husband. And usually, the people who are around you are the people who understand you the best and know, and if they can push you a little bit, that's usually the best. He had to tell me, Julie, you really should create a podcast, or at least share your voice on a larger platform. And so he did drag me kicking and screaming to create a podcast, and we did. We created it 2 years ago, and so there are many episodes for free on iTunes. It's called All Possibilities, and I ended up interviewing people from scientists to spiritual healers to business executives who were cultivating their own intuition, just to kind of explore that intersection. And that's what I discovered, is that when you know your purpose, you can unlock so many new opportunities, and yet it is also a moment to moment choice for you to actually express your purpose. It is very, very easy to get back into, like, the normal swing of things, and have your rational or ego mind just keep you small, or make all the fears and doubts louder than all the wants and the passions that you may have. So I encourage you to, as you're listening, just to look back at your own lives to see where you had any fear. And now I hope to, whenever I see fear, I use it as an indicator to ask myself, how can I grow if I were to walk towards that fear? And usually my higher self will say, yes, you know the answer. The big version of you knows the answer, that walking towards fear, whether it is leaving your job, or going into a completely new field, or starting your own business, or starting a passion project that you feel people might, look at you funny, or you're afraid it's going to fail. All these things, it's coming from your ego mind, and your higher self is the mind, is the heart that knows that there is something greater for you on that, on the other side. So yeah, that's um, how I came to now doing this work as an intuitive, as a psychic. Um, I work with I work with executives, people who are working in, corporate jobs or nonprofits. I work with entrepreneurs, who are looking to align their business with their soul, because I found that when you have a business that doesn't align with your soul, it can, run you into the ground in more ways than one. And I work with really everyone else in between. I've had college students who got a kickstart on their purpose. It's amazing to see some of the younger generation really in tune and wanting to be in tune earlier. And I've also worked with people who are retired, who are looking to see, what more can I do? And it's just been, for me, incredibly rewarding, spiritually, to see that people can think in this way. And my dream is that one day we can all live in a world where everyone will know their soul's purpose, and everyone will be able to support each other in expressing that purpose. So maybe education looks a little different. Maybe, the nature of work looks a little different. Maybe healthcare, health and wellness will look a little different, because I found through my own clients that people can get off antidepressants, and people can improve their health when they finally get rid of the stress of, I'm not living my purpose. And I've yet to prove that, but that's sort of my next passion, and it's still being kind of created. And I'm certainly open to connecting with members of the community too who are interested, but I'm looking to kind of have a citizen science approach towards demonstrating how intuition and everything in the metaphysical world, energy healing, mind over matter, can impact our industries, can help us think of health care, education, business, um, in a completely, and human potential in a completely different way. So that's sort of the next thing. But yeah, I guess I'll pause here and